Hi, for those of you that don't know me or my work, my name is Ray and I'm a painter. As a practicing artist, I'm going to share with you my journey over the past 12 months and how I've got to be where I am today. I want to talk about how I make art and what's important to me. Meet Ray George. Now, she was born Rachel Bradford, but as an artist is Ray George. It's a persona that she's taken on to be able to make the work that she makes, to be able to get deep inside of who she is, who she wants to be. And she'll be giving the talk today. Oh my God, she ain't got a clue what she's talking about. This should be good. Meet Imposter Ray. Now, she's going to be cropping up a lot throughout this talk, and she's perfectly normal. Everybody tells themselves awful things at one point or another, especially when we're highly driven and really care about the work that we're doing. But don't worry, I'm going to keep her in check. I established key areas of interest that have gone on to inform my practice. I started my MA during the COVID pandemic, and so as time went on, I had to adapt my practice around various national restrictions that meant the world had to isolate at certain times. I began using the iPad for this practical reason, so I could continue to make work without the use of a studio. So she actually sat on the sofa, painting on her iPad, watching telly. I mean, is that a real artist? Well, yeah, that can be an artist. I mean, she's working in a post-studio way. And David Hockney's done all right. He's been using the iPad since it came out in 2010. So why can't Ray use it? When I started working with the iPad, I knew I wanted to paint figures, but I wanted to do it well. I felt the iPad gave me this confidence because I could work with photography and the painting app Procreate, and I could instantly produce a figure which then allowed me to paint instinctively and focus on playing with marks. Hang on a minute, you trace over a photo? Well, that's not original. Anyone can do that. Well, yeah, anyone can do it, but they're not. Ray's doing it. Artists have used tools for thousands of years, whether it's the pen and pencil, the camera obscura during the Renaissance, tracing over an image using glass. Sound familiar? Another key area I developed interest in was feminism and the lack of women's voices throughout art history. Their stories were often told for men, by men, and I was fascinated by women's narratives, and this was the research for my dissertation titled "How has the role of the woman artist changed since 1900?" I used lived experiences as case studies of women artists relating to my practice to inform my research. To make my pictures, I focused on the use of colour to aid in the storytelling. I did all this using myself as a muse and model. Oh God, she thinks she's Tracy Emin now. This is typical imposter syndrome behaviour. Comparison culture is something that can knock our confidence because we're comparing ourselves to other people, famous people, people that have come before, and it can make us feel like we're not original. And that's something that as humans we want to be. We want to be original, we want to stand out, we want to be unique. I have taken the theme of lived experiences and used this at the heart of my work. I have split my work into sections to test each part. The first is the overall mood and emotion. I thought about my use of colour to express a certain mood at a certain time in my life. Different marks can evoke a sense of feeling, exploring themes like vulnerability and sadness, because that's what I was feeling at the time, and that was the resource I had to work with to be authentic. There's a kind of diary aspect to my work. I'm inviting the viewer to read my diary through my pictures. Over time, this story has changed, and so my work has changed, but the theme of mood and emotion is always at the heart. Okay, so she's basically deciding how she should paint. She's still pretending to be an artist. Very many women feel like they're pretending because traditionally the artist is a male role, and so as women we're having to pretend to be male. We're having to use the masculine part of our personalities and our inner selves and bring that out to be an artist. Take this quote. Even today, it's like a performance in itself. The second area of interest is the presence of myself as the muse in the pictures. I explored the use of a figure and questioned how much of the figure to use, and looked at using the whole figure or the portrait or splitting the body up. The third area of interest is the materials. I played with digital painting as well as physical painting such as oil, acrylic and emulsion paints, as well as other tools like pastels. I did this by creating a range of marks on different surfaces such as the iPad, stretched canvas and wallpaper. So now she's playing the skin artist. I mean, there's no other reason to be painting on wallpaper. And those little tester pots, they don't cost anything. Is this what real artists look like? Ray, do you remember why you went back to uni? It's because the calling to paint got so loud that you had to follow it. You had to give into it. You couldn't take it anymore. And look how far you've come since then, in a year. You're trying new methods. You're finding new ways of working. You're finding yourself, your practice, your position. I tried experimenting with painting physically and using a photo of the physical work. I could then place it into Procreate and work on top, making digital work that could also be printed. But I could also reverse the process by printing a digital picture and working physically on top. I printed on acetate to use its transparent nature to show through the paint texture. By having the two ways of working coming together, I found pros and cons for both. There's a certain freedom I feel with physical paint. It's playful, it's messy, it's textured and it's lively. It gives a 3D life to a picture that digital painting doesn't do. Yeah, but the physical painting isn't all that great. I mean, I know it's got this big history, but it's messy, it's slow, it takes ages to dry, ages to clean up. The digital stuff's pretty cool. I mean, now that everything's online anyway, it's much quicker to make work. And if you're working instinctively and in the moment, you can play on all those bad moods and capture it all quickly. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Oh, God. I've been converted. As part of my investigation research, I looked at how other women artists have worked with the aspects I'm interested in. For the overall mood and emotion, as well as my own experiences, I looked at the work and life of Tracey Emin. Often, she has at the centre of her work this idea of relationships, whether it's with other people, like the tent titled Everyone I Have Ever Slept With, 1963 to 1995, or whether it's the relationship with herself, like the exhibition with White Cube Gallery, titled The Last Great Adventure Is You, which actually started out as a love story and then became a cathartic process of realising her adventure was herself. In a lecture in Sydney, she spoke about how she saw herself in her 50s and her relationship with being a woman. People ask me why I often don't put faces in. It's because it doesn't matter whether it's me. It really isn't important. What's important is the woman. That's important. I'm so lucky I have a really good subject matter. Picasso had to use other people. I can use myself. He had to use women. I am my first muse and my first model. Now, this really resonated with me. I recently described my practice to someone that was new to art and new to me, that my work was about relationships and love, or the lack of. But it isn't. It's about my relationship with myself. Oh my God, sob story. Me. Is this what being an artist is? To be authentic and to not compromise, artists have to use themselves. They have to use their perspective on the world. In this book, titled The Mirror, the Palette, Rebellion, Revolution and Resilience, 500 Years of Women's Self-Portrait, talks about how men are praised for their masculinity and women are kind of left behind. Given their invisibility, the act of the female self-portraiture, a woman declaring that her existence is something worth recording, is one of a radical defiance. Look at me, she is saying. I exist. I have something to say. And this is why women making self-portraits matters. Taking this idea forward and thinking about the presence of myself as the muse and model, I turned to the figurative work of Jenny Saville. Jenny featured in my dissertation and has always been a great influence and inspiration to me. The use of figures to tell a story is what really appealed to me. The composition of a woman filling the canvas space excited me, and I thought about how I could crop my images and make the best use of the figure. Yeah, but I mean, this latest stuff, we can't share it, can we? I mean, there's boobs and bits all over the place. Now, identity is a key theme for many artists. In 2014, Amelia Ullman created an online persona and she set up an Instagram account, and between April and September of that year created this fake narrative, created this fake persona, and she gained over 80,000 followers who believed that this was real. And at the end of her time in September, she revealed that it was a performance. Some work I made during the summer focusing on how I create the female figure featured in a show at Boomer Gallery in London. I explored the exhibition title, Is My Work Good Enough? Is It Contemporary? A lot of the feedback I gained from the opening night was that they didn't believe it was an iPad painting. They thought it was a real painting. This gave me new confidence. I thought about the poses in my pictures and where the gaze was directed. When I, as the muse, am looking at the viewer, there's a sense of empowerment, control. But when I'm looking away or have closed eyes, there's a sense of vulnerability. But as the maker, the muse and the model, I still have some control over how I allow the viewer to see me. It was Marcel Duchamp that was quoted as saying, "It's the viewer that makes the work." But I believe this can change when the artist is a woman, making work about herself, using herself. It puts some control back in the hands of the artist, and this is something that's important as a woman. To take ownership over the male gaze. Yes, but you trace over a photo. You take a photo, you trace over it. That's not original. The things I tell myself are really horrible. But no one else tells me that. No one's ever told me that I'm not good enough, that I can't do this, that I shouldn't do this. It's only me. But I really don't believe that I'm good enough. And telling myself that
Like, this is just silly that I should go back to having a real job. It feels like something that I should do. I want this to be my life. And I know that that's going to be a long struggle. And I'm going to get like this because I care about it so much, but I just don't think that I'm good enough to do this. I don't know, how do I get past this? How do I tell myself that I am good enough and that the work that I'm doing is good enough? It's good enough for what? I don't even know what standard that I'm trying to live up to.
For the use of materials I have become interested in, I looked at the women of abstract expressionism. During the 1940s, it was the first time in art history women were at the birth of an art movement. Wives and lovers of famous male artists were artists in their own right. This movement is also tied into creating a mood. I thought about how they made abstract marks that makes their work identifiable as their own. Artists like Joan Mitchell, Elaine de Kooning, Helen Frankenthaler and Lee Krasner. Each had their signature way of working to create their pictures. I also looked at my contemporaries and who were interested in this method of working, such as Jade Fadajutami. She talks about how personal her work is and that actually she doesn't see it as abstract expressionist and that we need new language to identify and understand this autobiographical method. Through this research, I have developed a critical perspective and understand my field of knowledge that I define myself in. This has helped me to position myself as a cultural producer. I am the maker, the muse, and the model. To be authentic, I am at the heart of my pictures because only I can truly know myself. And that's where artists are often lonely or solitude characters. We can and must collaborate with others. We cannot work in a void. But there is a certain amount that can only come from within. We communicate through our work and challenge the viewer to understand that. So let's go over what you've learned. You're questioning art history, you're questioning painting, and you're putting yourself at the heart of it all as the muse. This is your position, Ray, to take forward. As an artist, I am a painter. I am influenced by my surroundings. I'm a product of my time. I'm adaptable. I am the maker. I am a muse. And I am my model. But I'm also a woman. I have moods. I have emotions. I have periods. I have anxiety. I have family. I have friends. I have love. And I make pictures. And maybe you'll find that you don't need to choose between being a woman in society and being an artist, because being an artist is as much a part of you as anything else is. You've just got to take what you've learned and continue to make work. Keep going. Don't listen to the imposter. Keep going. Believe in yourself and keep making the work. It doesn't matter what your story is. Your sexuality, your gender, where you live. What matters is making the work and telling your story, because others will relate to your story. Your story is not completely unique, but you can share your story with others through your work. Art's always been there for you, Ray, because it's part of who you are. It's you that's always been there for you.